Welcome to Seeking the Garden. We're so glad that you're here. Join us as we have honest conversations about faith today.
Just taking a sip of water. Okay, ready?
Yep.
Hey!
Welcome to Seeking the Garden podcast, season 2, episode 3.
Woo.
Today we're going to be talking about promises and rainbows, which, if you know anything about Taylor and I, rainbows are something that have marked a lot of our lives. And we'll touch a little bit on it, but if you know us in person, chat with us more about it. We definitely love to talk about it. It's a huge way that the Lord has spoken to us over the years, and is really special. And so,
It's also kind of was the spark of our friendship.
yes. And so naturally, we wanted to hit on it in our podcast, and with that, specifically talking about promises and the promises of God, and the things that He promises us. And so, yeah, we're going to just jump right on in. We are going to jump into Genesis 9. This is when God is making His covenant with Noah. So, if you've been around church for a while, and even if you haven't, you've probably heard of Noah's Ark. Big wooden boat, a lot of animals. The earth was flooded. Here we are. And so when we're jumping into chapter 9, we are after the flood, and Noah is stepping into the new land with his family, and God is making a covenant with him. A covenant, that's another word for promise. And so God speaks to him and gives him different, verse 1 starts, "Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth," which is called back to Genesis, and the call with Adam and Eve. And then we continue further on down, and verse 8, it says, "Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all of life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said this is a sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures for every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all living creatures of every kind on earth." So God said to Noah, "This is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all of life on earth."
Amen.
I'm like, that can stand alone, but also what a mouthful. And so, yeah, Tay, do you want to break apart maybe part of it of like what covenants are, how covenants, like old covenant, new covenant kind of stuff, and also maybe hit a little bit on your significance with rainbows?
Yeah. If you go back to episode 1 of season 2, I do touch a little bit on Old Covenant versus New Covenant, and I could talk about that more, but in this context, go back to that and listen to it, and it has deeper and longer explanation. But yeah, just whenever a covenant was made, it was a promise, and specifically this covenant, as well as what is called the new covenant, is God making that promise to man about these things. And specifically in this case, yes, this covenant is to not flood the earth, and that he will never flood the earth again. And that was him flooding the earth. It was a way that he restored the earth. That back in, if you know the story of why Noah's Ark even came about, it was because the earth and the people on it had become to such a destructive state that there was actually genuinely like not normal humans left on Earth. Fallen angels had come down. They had children with men, and then they became these other creatures which were not actually created from God. They're called Nephilim, and so that's another thing in and of itself. That's not the point of this. But that was the reason why he flooded the earth in the first place. And Noah and his family was the first, was one of the only families and people on earth that were declared righteous, and were the hope that the Lord said, I can restore the earth off of you. And time again, the Lord always sees and finds people that he can restore us from and by and to, and we know that like he does that in Kings later on, and through different people, and of all the people that he restores the most through is Jesus, the person of Jesus, and all that represents. But yeah, the story of the rainbow specifically, I think, is such a beautiful, beautiful sign that is actually such a tangible sign that we can see still to this day of the Lord's promise. And also, just rainbows are crazy too. It's like, it's all these beautiful colors. I mean, whether you believe in God or not, you see a rainbow and you go, that is gorgeous, that is stunning.
Yep.
And it points to so many of the colors that the Lord, and I think that there's colors in the rainbows that we actually can't see. And it's a part of the full spectrum of colors that God created. And I just think that's beautiful. And for me, the reason rainbows are so significant to me is because when my parents were trying to decide on my name, there was a rainbow in the sky when they decided on my name. And it was a confirmation to them that that was the name that they should choose for me. And my name is Taylor Janae, and it means one who reconciles with the grace of God. And I would also argue that I think that even points back to the rainbow, because the rainbow is a reconciliation like example and sign of God reconciling the earth and the people and him all together in one, which is just so beautiful and powerful. And so the rainbow has always just like, I had a rainbow painted on the wall in my room. Like, it was a very, like, it just meant something to me because of what my parents experienced through me coming into the earth and the world. And specifically when I was maybe I was like somewhere between 7 and 10. That's a big range. But my dad was going through a really, really tough time, and we were on the road and we were driving. I was actually in a different car than he was, and I saw a rainbow. And I think this was actually probably one of my first times where I felt like I was hearing something from God. And I saw a rainbow in the sky, and I texted my dad, and I was like, Daddy, I think like God's saying something through the rainbow. I think like he's reminding you of like something and a promise that, and my dad was like, what do you think he's saying? And I felt like what I heard was like, everything's going to be okay. And that is what God said back when he first created the rainbow. So it's like, that is just truth of what rainbows mean. Like, everything's going to be okay. Like, I am here and present. But what little did I know, me being so little and unaware, my dad started weeping in the other car, and he was just undone because what he was going through, and like we were financially tight, all these things, like something that he had poured his heart and life into was falling apart. And hearing those words from God, especially through his daughter, just left him so undone. And so from that moment forward, rainbow is just like even more meant so much to me. And every single time I saw a rainbow, it was an invitation to ask God, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Is there something you're reminding me about? Is there a promise that you're reminding me about? And as I've gotten like older, and it's always been a fun little game, honestly, that I think the Lord even plays with me. And she and I have like had this sweet thing too, where whenever we see a rainbow, we send a picture to each other, and like we'll even ask that question of like, what do you feel like the Lord's saying? And for me, and I think you too, it's each time it's sometimes a reminder of different promises that he's made to us personally about our lives, about things that he has for us. And it's just, yeah, that's a lot of the significance for me. What about you?
Yeah. Um, I don't have a memory of like the first time that rainbows showed up. Um, but for as long as I can remember, they always felt significant. And it was always like, I don't know, again, like you said, the awe and wonder of a rainbow
Yes.
in and of itself, but also the way that rainbows are made is like there has to be water and there has to be
Yeah.
light. And there's like you can unpack that alone forever, but this idea of I specifically think of like tears and sorrow in rain
Absolutely.
and like light hitting it and it makes this beautiful thing, and then a rainbow being like this symbol of a promise, like that for me was always significant of like, but there is a promise in this of like that there's something more, even if I don't know what the promise is.
Totally.
There is something more. And so I know that it was something that I kind of kept to myself of just like, oh, I'd see a rainbow and it's like, oh, that's cool, between me and the Lord. And then later in high school, it became more prominent and they've started to show up at really significant points. Which is a whole other story that I won't get into in this moment, but like made my college decision off of a rainbow, which some people may say that I'm absolutely insane for.
But of you, the story, it makes sense.
Yes, and again, it's the history that I had with the Lord to get to that point where it was just so evident and so clear. And then even thinking through some of our texts, even more recently, like I want to say within like the last month, where I know that you've sent me some. It's really one of my like special love languages, I think, is like when people see a rainbow and they send it to me and they're like, "Oh, I thought of you." And I'm like, "Oh, you thought of me when you saw that." And not that they're thinking of me, but like they know my story and so it's automatically like I know that the Lord is speaking through you through this, so I'm going to send it to you. And specifically over the last month, every time I've received those texts, I'm like, this feels really significant. And there's more that I could unpack there that I like don't have permission from the Lord to share here and now. But just sitting in that of like, it is such a personal thing and it's the Lord's personal reminder. But when we think of the rainbow in its original form, it's to all people, all living things, all creatures. It's to the earth. This is my promise. And so there is these really big, broad, scaping, beautifully given promises. And then there's the promise of God speaking to Hannah Grace. And there's the promise of God speaking to Taylor. And those little promises that, again, maybe I don't even know what they are, but the Lord's like, hey, remember, like,
yeah,
I haven't forgotten this.
Yeah.
And I haven't forgotten you. Which also then goes into, we're recording in California. I'm back in California. I'm like, a lot has happened in the last 2 years since we've last recorded, but visiting in California, and I've had a lot of conversations this week in particular about beholding the promises of God, and wrestling with like, does God actually make personal promises, and if so, what are they, and what if they don't come true? Then did we hear the Lord's voice wrong? All of these things, there's so many conversations that can come out of it, but something that I have wrestled with and have been continuing to sit with during my time here has been Hebrews 11, which is your lovely little by faith so-and-so, by faith so-and-so, by faith so-and-so.
What do they call it? The Hall of Faith?
Yeah. I was trying to think of what it was called and I was like, what is it? So we're going to jump to Hebrews 11:13. And, well, actually, I'm going to jump above it. We're going to jump verse 8. I'm going to jump around a little bit, but it's okay. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to the place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise.
Hmm.
For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand in the seashores, which is a promise he made to Abraham. Go back to Genesis and read that. Verse 13, though, then says, all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from afar, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. Goes through a whole bunch of other verses. We're going to jump to verse 39 and it says, these were all condemned for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, that only together with us would they be made perfect. And then it goes into chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that is so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Blah, blah, blah. It continues.
Well, hold on. Fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, yada yada. But I just think, like, fixing your eyes on Jesus.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I've sat and wrestled with these. I think there's different ways that we can pick apart these.
Yes.
And we've said this in the other podcast episodes. I'm just gonna keep hitting it.
It's
home,
literally
though.
the same point that I think we've made, but it's the whole
But it is the point. Like
of
that's
this world.
It's not about the things promised. It's about the promiser, the promise maker, the promise keeper.
Jesus
And
is the reward.
yes, it's about communing and doing life with him. And the sweetness that he does promise things and he is faithful and wants to give us them. And he's not a liar when he promises something and it doesn't happen. Because we also have agency, and I think that this, like, Hebrews chapter 11 shows that of, like, by faith this person did this because God called them to do this. And not that we earn the promises,
Absolutely.
but that there is agency and we have choice. And so we can choose to receive the promise or not. We can choose to receive the promises or not.
Right. Well, and it's like even amidst so many of these like examples in the Hall of Faith, and it's like I encourage you to read every single one, like all of chapter 11. Even like all the way back to like Enoch and Abel, and like I love Enoch because he like literally was so close to God that he never died and was just taken up. And I just think that's the coolest thing, but it's like that was the reward. And even it says in verse 6, it says, and without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him.
Yeah.
And so it's like the whole point is to seek him, and that is the reward. It's like he rewards those who seek him with his presence, with who he is. And even like Sarah and Abraham, like Sarah was like so old, and like not, it's like there was no way she could conceive a son, and to what we think is impossible, but God.
Yes.
And it's like I would argue too, it's like that was also something that God promised Abraham, that was a promise that was fulfilled. And so they maybe didn't experience the fullness of the promise that God had for them, but they experienced some other promises, some very specific to them. And I think it's this tension of, I think the ultimate promise is also Jesus. And I think I would argue that's also what chapter 11 is trying to say, is like the ultimate promise that a lot of these people didn't experience or see was Jesus coming back again. And, well, coming back, period. Up to that point, they didn't know him like we know him today.
Yes.
And, like, they might not have who they knew was to come and who they believed in. They didn't experience that promise being fulfilled in their lifetime. But there were so many other little things that they did experience. And it's that same tension that we've kind of touched on in like some of our other podcasts in this season of, it's the tension of some things will be fulfilled here on earth and some will not. And we don't know which things will and which things will not, but there's beauty in both, and there's beauty in the
Yes.
tension. And like there's so many promises that he has for you, and some really are to be fulfilled here on earth.
Yes.
So keep asking.
Yeah, like, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Is like, it's not what you ask for, it's the fact that you're asking in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And right, it says that like, seek and you'll find, like, knock and the door will be opened, like those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we miss that. I know I miss that.
Right.
And yet we get to ask these personal questions, but even to that point, right, and then thinking of like the promised land.
Totally. Moses never got to actually walk into it.
Right. But he was promised it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was generations later. And like,
right.
even thinking through,
That's
like,
where the agency comes in.
and there are like, we're living in promises from generations above us that we won't ever know about. And there are things that like the Lord has promised me now that it could be my grandkids or kids after, that like they receive it in its fullness. And there's the like pride part of me is like, no, I want those promises. I want that for myself. That's not the point though.
Right.
And it's the point of like that we get to commune with him, that we get to ask these things, and that he knows us so well that he's like, let me give you this, and let me promise this to you.
Let me show you glimpses.
Yes. I even think of like, right, when we're little kids and you knew that you were close with somebody, when it was like, you're not allowed to tell anyone, and you're like,
this is our secret.
Like, I won't tell anyone, you got it. And then you're like, but I'm going to tell my best friend. And so then you go and you're like, you have to promise me you're not going to tell anyone. And then you make a pinky promise. Like, you touch and intertwine and are like, promise me. And I think that is where we, like, because that's some of our history, the first things we know of promises, in our brains, promises so easily get broken. And maybe we expect them to be broken, or we expect
because we're looking to the human.
Yes, and because we expect them to be this, like, if you do this, then I will keep my end, which then goes back into the covenant, and the Lord keeping his covenant, and he's like, even if you don't keep your part, I'm keeping mine. And I'm actually going to cover your part too by sending my son.
Well, and straight up the covenant that he made with Abraham, he put Abraham to sleep, and like he did the acts of the covenant. He did the acts of walking around and sacrificing the animals, and like that was him saying like, I'm laying my own life down on the line. Not like, it's not for it's I'm doing it. I am promising, and you didn't have to do a thing. Abraham was literally asleep.
Yes.
And that's a piece of the true new covenant. And even, but it's crazy because people forget that it's like, oh, that was like the covenant all the way back with like Abraham in Old Testament. And it's like, that's just a piece of like, and the whole point of like, from the beginning of time, Jesus like has this promise of his presence and to be with us. And yeah.
Dang, good stuff. Now thinking through like, okay, all of this is great, but what about for the person who doesn't know how to ask personal questions of the Lord? Or what if promises feel disappointing, or that they feel like promises have been broken? Like, yeah, in our typical question of like, how does this grow us, but like, how does it grow that specific? Because we didn't come out of the womb just like,
no,
oh, I believe his promises, he speaks in rainbows, I'm walking, I'm fine. Even now, he still gives us rainbows, and I'm still like, Lord, are you sure you're gonna keep up your end of the promise? Are you sure that this is the promise? And so, yeah, kind of what would you say to that, or what's I'm putting you on the spot there.
Yeah, you're right. I think so much of, I don't know how much, I'll just say this. I think so much of what the Lord has taken me on a journey, even in like, because I truly, in the last 2, 3 years, I think I've wrestled a lot with even just like expectations and like things that I hoped for, do believe like the Lord promised for me. Like, and then I think this thing is it. I think this thing is which like the Lord didn't necessarily say that that was it. He said that like this is a promise I gave you, yes, but I thought I put in a box how I thought it was going to be fulfilled. And when I was experiencing maybe a glimpse of it, I was like, this is it. This is it. This is going to be it. This is the fulfillment. And I've been disappointed, and there's pieces of it where it's like it's been a lot of people that have been the disappointing aspect to it, but it's been alongside something that is a door the Lord opened for me. And I think a lot of what He has taught me is it's the next right step that I'm asking you to say yes to. And like, even I was just actually talking to someone just a few hours ago of the Lord is always like teaching us. Well, He's always teaching us in every season, and it's like oftentimes the season we're in prepares us for the next, but it's like we forget that like this isn't the end.
Yeah.
And that there is so much more, and that there is more steps to be taken after the current steps that I'm taking. And I think there's just so much more to the story, and my encouragement would be like, don't stop pressing in, like keep pressing in, keep asking. And like, I think when bigger questions feel hard, start with yes or no questions.
Yeah.
And like literally just like the impression of a yes versus a no that you get, like go with it. And it's often in the smaller acts of taking the step of faith that the Lord then like builds up your faith, and you see how faithful He is, and you see how He's doing so much more than we think. And sure, am I not fully satisfied with everything that I'm at in my life? Absolutely. But I'm 24 also. It's like there's so much more to come. And but at the same time, if I look back at like what I was asking the Lord for a year ago, I am actually walking in the requests that I made to Him. Are there still things that are frustrating? For sure. But even to the like specific, like downright, like so specific, I am walking in that. And it's like it's often sometimes in the reflection that we realize the fullness, and we realize like what, like how much He did, how much He moved. And so even like look back at your life, look back at how far you've grown, like don't forget what He's done in the past, and believe that He can do so much more. That's what I would say. What would you say?
Literally that last part of what you said of like remember, like go back and in that, go like the most practical, go read your Bible, go read Hebrews 11, see that He who promised is faithful, and His promises do not return void. And I think a lot of people are like, but this book was written blah 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 so many years ago. Yes,
but it's so applicable today.
So applicable. And start writing down what the Lord is doing, what you're asking of the Lord now, and what He's doing now. I have journal after journal after journal that I can go back and just see the way that the Lord moved and like
answered. And
yes, and it's that to me, like I need the reminders so consistently of like, Lord, you said that you promised it. Like, okay, I'll go back. And like the Lord often is like, can you go back and like go read what I told you? And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot that you like said that. Forgot that this is what you meant. Forgot that this is like what you've done. And so that's my encouragement is like, if you haven't been writing things down, start now. Like it's never too late to start, and it doesn't need to be this big. I got like, I don't know. I can get in my head of like, oh, I need to make this the perfect, like, pretty journal notebook thing.
Nope.
Most of the stuff is now written on sticky notes that I don't know where they are. And like, or they're in a million different journals and boxes that I have. But when I find them again and I read through them, like, my faith is built because of that. And so that's my encouragement, is like, keep asking, but also like keep writing down, because even what he says today, like, it might not be for today, it might be for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Or it might have been for yesterday. And so yeah, that's the encouragement. But thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. We are honored to have you here and a part of our conversation. We pray it blessed you, and we encourage you to share it with a friend or family member.